Hey, guys, at some point in the past week, I made the passing assessment, and I do mean passing, like it was just part of a phrase, which was part of a sentence, which was part of a paragraph, that the Steelers had the capability in 2025 to be a very good football team. Didn't really think that would meet with any resistance. First off, capability means, they have that, opportunity. So it wasn't like it was some sort of prediction. And very good is not exactly the most, over the top endorsement of anybody's potential. It's just very good. This was met with some blowback. And one individual in particular said, how can you say that? Like, how can you even think that when you watched how they ended the 2024 season? When you covered all that, you covered all 5 of the losses and were around them and all the bad stuff that happened, and especially, of course, the 299 yards against on the ground in the playoff game in Baltimore. How can that even cross your mind? And I'm thinking the other way around. I'm thinking, how can it not cross your mind that they could be that when they just were that? Think of it this way. When you're talking about a team that's coming off starting the season at 10-3, and they were out there doing all this stuff, all this good stuff right in front of your eyes, and then they beat Washington, the team that would make it to the conference championship. They beat Baltimore. They beat other playoff teams along the way. I know there's now this thing where it's cool to say, oh, yeah, it's just an easy schedule and everything that they had. No, look back on it. Look back at the records of those teams that they beat along the way. Yeah, there were a couple stinkers in there, a couple, the New Jersey teams and so forth. But for the most part, they were a legit 10-3 team. And at that time, they were as legit as any 10-3 or similarly recorded team in the mix. So why would it be not okay to think they could be very good again in 2025 when we can all have the conversation that they've gotten better this offseason? I don't know that they've gotten spectacularly better, and I don't know that we can really come up with any sort of complete grade or whatever for them until we know who their quarterback is. But they've gotten better. Look at the areas in which they had a shortfall, including in those 5 losses to end the season, and tell me which position, other than slot corner, as we talked about here on the show yesterday, that they haven't upgraded. In a couple of cases, significantly. Very good is okay. Look, yeah, I saw the 5 games, all right? I got it. But I also saw the first 13. And for 412 to ask, as they do here, have we really gotten any better this offseason? Yes. Objectively, calmly, reasonably, yes. They have gotten better. There's no doubt about that. And I think that's the part that really needs to kind of maybe start coming to the forefront a little bit is, they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. We don't have to wait on wondering whether or not the football team got better. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Chris Halleck, and we're going to continue this conversation into the next segment.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing, not too much. I grabbed a bite of this biscuit during the very brief break. You can't chew those down in the 29.5 seconds.
Nope.
That the ad allows. So people are coming back right away. It's never, yeah, you're right. They could be very good. It's always something negative, and that's fine. We can deal with that here. Facts Only says the doubt about that is the offensive line. And Chris, is the offensive line going to be better in 2025 than it was in 2024?
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. But the word there is progress, isn't it?
Yeah, it's because it's a line in development. It's a young offensive line. I can't tell you how many times throughout this entire offseason, whether it be in live cues or on this show or on the Southside beat or wherever else I've done anything, is that there's so much concern about the offensive line. I'm like, the offensive line doesn't need to be touched. You need to let these guys grow. You need to let these guys develop. This is what they were drafted to do. I mean, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu, all entering their second season. And Fautanu missed almost all of his rookie year, all but 55 snaps, and that was it. And Broderick Jones is moving over to left tackle. He's probably the biggest concern of all of these guys. And then Isaac Samuel is a vet. So it's like you have one major concern out of 5 guys up front, while 3 of them are going into their second year and one's a veteran guy. Like, come on, like, let these guys develop, let them grow. That's what they were built to do right now.
Yeah, and I'm not going to turn this into a quarterback thing because we could do that every day. This is really just about the state of the current football team as we know it right now. Okay, that means without Rodgers, that means without obviously any other pending additions or surprises and so forth. What we know right now, Mark Cunningham probably begins and ends the debate by saying these 2 words.
1,000%.
Okay. DK Metcalf all by his lonesome makes this a better football team than it was.
Yep.
And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow. I mean, that's the beginning and the end of this discussion, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It truly, like when people are talking about whether talking about win totals and can they improve on 10 wins, the improvement from 9 wins to 10 wins from 2023 to 24. Well, no, they won 10 games both times. That's right. They won 10-7 2 years in a row. So, but those 10 wins were not the same. 10 wins last year was way more impressive than 10 wins the year before.
Absolutely.
Because of the strength of the schedule, the way the schedule was laid out. And so you'll look into this year and it's going to be another tough slate of opponents. But if they go 10-7 again, it's still a good football team based off of what their schedule looks like. And especially if it's not favorable when it comes to, okay, when's their bye week? Is it going to be right after they go to Ireland? Well, the Ireland game is going to be earlier in the season. And so if the bye week's right after Ireland, then that means they're having an early bye, which means that's a long stretch without a break. And so there is a number of different things that can go into that. Not all 10-win seasons are created equal. They're just not. This is still a better football team on paper than it was when the season ended in Baltimore after 299 yards on the ground. I'll just keep bringing it up just for the fun of it.
Yeah, the Facts Only comes back since he was the one that brought up, he or she, was the one who brought up the offensive line. Says Isaac's old. So far, Jones is a bust. That's a little strong. Nothing guarantees Mason McCormick will make a leap. Nothing guarantees that he won't. Yet Chris says the team has one major offensive line concern. Unbelievable. Oh, I mean, you can take that into both directions. Okay. I could also say, well, listen, Zach Frazier was awesome as a rookie, but what if he has his own second year slide like Broderick did? You can go in all different directions. Nobody has a definitive stance on this for you to be saying unbelievable. That's talking football here.
That's why I use the phrase work in progress. It's not better. It's not worse. It's a work in progress. That's what it is. It's that simple. It's hard to project where they're going to go because of how young 4 of the 5 starters are.
Our friend Victory Asher drops a $20 bill on the program. Woo-hoo! We appreciate that, man. That's really cool. Never ever taken for granted. Never presumed. Sasha Steele from Germany. Well, it says greetings from Germany, because we didn't know that Sasha was over in Germany. He says, we just recorded a podcast episode with Julius Welschof.
Nice.
Think about him. I'll tell you what I think about Welschof. When you watch him in practices and in the preseason, I got to tell you this. He does not exactly stand out in some negative way. Like, I mean, you look at him and you go, oh yeah, he's ready, which I think is the highest compliment that you can play to or offer to a non-traditional, non-U.S. player who's attempting to assimilate into American football. What's your viewpoint on where the Steelers are with him? You can never forget guys like this, because we used to not pay all that much attention to Alejandro Villanueva when he was poking around too. And the next thing you knew, Al was starting. Al was your left tackle, and you're like, what the heck? Where'd this come from?
Yeah, it is interesting to see where he is, and it's interesting that the Steelers keep dipping their toes into the Welschof well. Like, they just keep, because I mean, it's not the first time that they've like brought him in, and then they had to, you know, obviously when cut down day happens, you know, they had to let him go, but then they brought him back, and so I think he's a very, very much a candidate to be on the practice squad. And that's not any slight whatsoever. Jeremiah Moon will likely be on the practice squad too, or at least be a strong candidate for it. Those guys end up being valuable because at some point during the season, you
never know, man.
Football is a game of attrition. And so you never know when they're going to have their number called and when they're going to have to elevate guys from the practice squad to play some meaningful snaps. It ends up happening. And so, it's definitely a guy that they like for sure. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he continues to fit in, you know, on the practice squad and then continues to be part of the team.
Mark Cunningham's this is a good question on a little bit of a different topic here. What's the chances of the Steelers extending Deshon Elliott this summer? He's not the type of player that they tend to go to the year before. Okay. That's more of a TJ, Troy, those kinds of players.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, look at the season he just had.
Yeah.
And look at the criteria he fits in, very, very specific particular as it relates to this head coach who values nothing more than the art of the football tackle.
Yeah.
Okay. Elliott, listen, for whatever else he might or might not do. And I mean, I don't know that I've ever even, done any sort of in-depth anything on the caliber of the safety play as it relates to coverage and supporting guys and whatever else here. But I don't care, because if you're going, especially with the 3 safety system, and Deshon is up near the line of scrimmage, you've got yourself, I'm going to say it, an all-pro.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, within that context, if there was a third safety position for the all-pro, he has been, and he was all season long, every game, that good.
Yeah, he was by far their best pickup, especially in terms of bang for your buck. I would not rule it out. I haven't heard anything definitive, but you can bet that by the time OTAs minicamp comes around, I'm going to be sniffing around trying to figure it out, because that's going to be a time. Obviously, the summer, the training, like during training camp, that's the time that they usually get extensions hammered out. They do have to figure out TJ Watt, but I think they know TJ is going to get done. So then, yeah, you have to look at who else you could possibly extend. And when you have a guy who came in and performed the way he did, you have to at least entertain it, at least have a conversation, see if he's interested and see what the price might be.
Eric says here that Mason Rudolph would be the easiest quarterback for the offensive line to develop protection skills for. Would that be accurate? I guess so, but I would also say that that's not the reason you would pick a quarterback. Okay. I mean, as much as I'm in favor of Mason being the starter for this team this coming season, I would never say choose Mason because ... Okay. Mm-hmm. The list of qualifications and your variables that you'd have in your assessment, it would be this long before you get to, the line likes blocking for him. It was a big deal for us at the time that he came in 2023, because the quarterbacks that had preceded him were just a catastrophe in that regard. But when you're talking about those quarterbacks versus Aaron, I did it again. Oh no. I did it again.
It's a first now.
Aaron Rodgers, he meant, and he said, and you didn't even hear that. When you're talking about a 4-time MVP, regardless of age, what you are talking about is someone who's more capable than those guys, obviously, at any age, but also gets rid of the football really fast. So that thing is going to get mitigated. Mason's going to have his ability to stand in the pocket and maybe survey the field a little bit longer and allow the routes to play out. Okay. Rodgers is going to get rid of the ball, and Rodgers is going to have a better sense for it, a better arm, and meaning arm talents and stuff like that. But I wouldn't factor this. Would you, Chris?
No, I would not factor the quarterback into offensive line protection skill development. That needs to be done between the offensive line coach and the player, regardless of who the quarterback is, because regardless of who the quarterback is in 2025, you're hoping that that's not the guy in 2026 unless Mason Rudolph absolutely just turns into a franchise quarterback.
If he has his Sam Darnold year, right, where he just where he just becomes your guy.
Right. Now, I don't foresee that happening, even if he has a really great year, just because of his age and knowing what the draft class is going to be looking like in 2026, what it could be looking like even in 2027. I know that the franchise is looking at those, at least one of those 2 years. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is this year when it comes to, because if it's Mason Rudolph, if it's Aaron Rodgers, it could very well be Garrett Nussmeier or Lenore Sellers or Drew Aller or somebody else in next year's draft, whoever they get. It could be somebody completely different. So you don't want to have the offensive line develop based off of who the quarterback is.
You people are all so mean. This is just brutal treatment. I didn't even make it the whole way through the mistake. Like somebody else pointed out that I caught it, so I had one more catch than Ramon Wilson did all season.
Oh,
you can't. It's like he catches the stray walking by.
Ouch.
You know, yeah. This is Mike firing off the stray here.
Man, that's mean.
Randy Wagner says that radio in Atlanta is pleading for the Steelers to take Kirk Cousins off the Falcons' hands. I don't think they get to make the Falcons' decisions for them.
They definitely don't.
I'm not sure the Falcons really know what the hell they're doing.
And also,
in any regard, I'm sorry.
I'm really not trying to throw
franchise. Sorry,
I'm really not trying to throw any shade here whatsoever. But you don't want radio personalities making football decisions. People in this city should know that.
I don't think you want anybody who's not in the. I mean, I'd say that's going to apply to us too. You don't, if you gave Chris and me the keys to the Steelers franchise, man, it would go under in about a day and a half.
We fire real quick.
No, we'd be like the worst.
Yeah,
seriously. Because here we go. Okay, let's say there's whatever $20 million in cap space or whatever. You know what we'd do? TJ Watt would say, "Hey, I heard you're the new guys, huh?" And we'd be like, "Yes, sir, we are." And he would say, "When are you going to pay me?" We're going to say, "Right now we are, sir." And then we give TJ his extension, and then it occurs to you that you haven't paid the draft picks yet. So the draft picks all end up getting cut before they even show up. We'd be the worst GMs ever.
You don't want reporters and analysts and everything making football decisions. No.
Cody Silva comes at us with $5 and a good question here. Says, what would you like to see out of the green dot? And through the other inside linebackers this year, Cole Holcomb, is he going to compete with Peyton Wilson? You're not going to compete with Patrick Queen. Okay, we know that much. All right.
I don't get the hate on Patrick Queen. I just don't.
Oh, I think I do, but I can't know it for sure. Can I just throw it at you?
Yeah, throw it at me.
All right. I think he got what I call bow-ringered. Now, let me explain that one, since nobody else could conceivably know what that means except a couple of friends of mine who work over at the Pirates. Many, many years ago, like 20 years ago, the Pirates had a relief pitcher named Brian Boehringer. Maybe the name at least rings a little bit of a bell, okay? And he got off to a terrible start for the Pirates. Just had 2 or 3 of those back-to-back relief appearances where he just got crushed, okay? Nothing he could do the rest of the way altered Pittsburgh's image of Boehringer. And in fact, he was quite good, had something like a 1-something ERA the entire rest of the season. No one cared. He was still, oh no, you can't bring Boehringer in. He's that guy.
Yeah.
I really feel like Queen got Boehringer to an extent. Early on in the season, he didn't make some tackles. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
The run defense? And they didn't look good. He also was, and to his credit, who was the most forthright and the most honest about this? Okay, it was Patrick himself. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
PQ would seek me out. And I remember this happened in Las Vegas.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay, where he goes, what do you think? And I go, what are you going to say? Hey, man, you sucked. You're not going to do that. He didn't suck. He got actually better as the game went on, but he struggled at the start. And the stuff plants itself into a bad spot of your brain that tends to be in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see that, and then you realize that he's also the green dot guy, and you were super crazy excited about him whenever he was signed. You thought this was just a game changer for the defense. He actually eventually ended up being a really nice contributor to this team, but it's going to take a while for that to embed itself.
I'm so glad somebody brought this up. Brian says, Queen is very mid without Roquan by his side. Anybody pay attention to what happened in Baltimore last year? Anybody at all? Trenton Simpson took Patrick Queen's spot next to him. Roquan's play deteriorated. And Trenton Simpson got benched for Malik Harrison, who is now with the Steelers.
There's some layers to that one.
The two are not related whatsoever, other than the fact that they were once teammates in Baltimore and both really good players playing next to each other. They made each other better. Did Patrick Queen miss Roquan? Yeah, probably, because he didn't have a Roquan Smith next to him. Yeah. But I guarantee you Roquan missed Queen too, because they were both phenomenal players playing next to each other. Give Queen another year, man. Jeez.
Damon Elswick says the beef that the Steelers added up front will make Queen and Wilson look a lot better as long as Harmon and Black do what they were brought in to do. I can't wait to see them flying sideline to sideline. See, that's something that they continued to do well that didn't get appreciated as much. I think especially by an older generation of football fans that still think of the inside linebacker position as something that it isn't. There are no more Lawrence Timmons in the game. That makes me sad for a lot of reasons, including that I just loved LT himself. But it was awesome having that one monster dude, and all the tackles were supposed to funnel to him or to Hardy Nickerson or whoever it is that you had in the big spot in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you go and you get that guy, and you think, yeah, he's going to be one of those, but he's not going to be. They're all supposed to be, to an extent, in the Ryan Shazier mold. They're all supposed to be the guys who do make sure they're taking away your screen passes, that they're covering, like you said, Chris, sideline to sideline. It's way more about coverage than anything else. Okay. So to what Dan's point here is that you're if you have your big boys stopping what they're supposed to stop, their job up front, then you're going to see these inside linebackers do what they are supposed to be doing.
Yep.
And what they were hired to do.
Yeah, and also like there's Baltimore's defense and Pittsburgh's defense are definitely different. There are some similarities in terms of schematics. I would really like to pull up the numbers, the actual numbers, to be able to tell them to you, but I don't have them off the top of my head. But what the coverages that they run, everything, there are definitely differences, and it's going to take time. It was always going to take time for Queen to pick up everything, because not only does he have to learn it for himself, he has to learn it for everybody else, because he has to communicate everything to everybody else, because he's wearing the green dot. You're not going to give that to Peyton Wilson. You're not going to give that to Cole Holcomb, who's coming off of a major gruesome knee injury, who's going to be fighting for snaps with Peyton Wilson. You're not going to give that to Malik. I mean, who else is going to be wearing the green dot? You're not giving it to a guy up front, and you're not giving it to a safety. It's got to be a guy who can communicate with both the front and the secondary. Queen is exactly what the Steelers need him to be, which is a sideline to sideline guy who can make tackles, who can also drop back in coverage and run deep if he needs to, and he can.
And it has this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You better believe he has this. And I think Pittsburgh is going to find out more and more about that the longer that he's around. I don't even want to tell you how grossly sick he was.
Oh, my gosh.
In that playoff game.
Terrible.
We're judging him. He should never have suited up for that game.
No, he really shouldn't have. He was yeah. It's
just a mess.
It was terrible.
Yeah, because we're thinking about what he was like in the locker room, and it's like
no, bad enough where as soon as I saw his face and he said that he was sick, I'm like, I need to get away from you. And there's nowhere to get away from him in that godforsaken locker room.
No, that room, you can't get away from it. Whatever anybody's caught in there, you're about to get it.
Uh-huh.
The Baltimore visiting locker room
is the worst.
Purposely cramped. Because they're malicious. They are what they are. They really are too.
So bad. You are literally, for anybody who does not know, obviously.
You're crawling on top of equipment bags to get from here to there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the worst spot in there, and I actually was joking with him about this, is Zach Frazier's or whoever the center is, because Marquise used to sit in the same seat in there because it's the one stall in the entire room that is accessible by mortal man.
Yeah.
Everybody else has to have some sort of athletic prowess or mountain climbing experience or something to get to the other part of the room. But you walk in and you go, hey, there's Zach.
Let's talk to the center. Yeah. It's and the fact that we had to go there twice last year.
Rick says he's a Steelers fan for 45 years, and the Steelers fans in large part judge quickly and don't forgive, probably more than any other fan base. I always have a tough time gauging that, Chris, because I don't pay attention to other fan bases, as I just know what the tendencies are here. I don't know.
Yeah.
What if the Baltimore fans are the same way? Who would know?
The only other fan base I've ever had consistent interaction with, and from a wide variety, is obviously Texas Rangers fans, because I covered the team for a little less than 3 seasons. Every fan base, based off, or at least the 2 fan bases, I would probably deduce that there are always going to be sections of a fan base that overreact to everything. Patrick Queen misses a tackle. He's the worst linebacker.
The worst.
It's just,
if he had Roquan, he would have made that tackle.
Yeah.
He thought he was, for us. I don't mean to not share the stuff that he shared with us. Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember specifically, this was back in Las Vegas, where he was telling me there are certain things that I'm still not reacting in the defense, or I'm thinking rather than just performing. And that was the stuff that would really throw him off. Now, later in the season, as he really started to feel it, including feeling the defense, Shaq here points out that it took James Ferrier 3 years to learn the Dick LeBeau defense. Potsy himself would acknowledge that, to where it became instinct for him. Now, I would posit that the LeBeau defense was a lot more complex
100%
than what they're doing now, because of all the Blitzburg stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But he got there. Smart guy. Queen will get there. Smart guy. That you don't wonder, like, is Queen not qualified for this mentally, physically, whatever, heart-wise? Just scratch it all off your list.
Seriously.
And just enjoy as it is that he gets better. Travante Towson says, hey, DK, you ever seen LT lose his cool in a game? Seen more reserved than most. LT was reserved in terms of his outward persona. Okay. And the nicest human ever. But he had also this magical switch that he could flip in pursuit that made you feel like that he was some sort of rabid animal chasing you down in the wild. Okay. And the beautiful thing about the vomiting videos going viral later in his career was that they had you thinking to yourself, what's going on in there? I don't mean the stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's going on in there? How unbelievably into this football game is he that he can just right at Chris, these happened at the line of scrimmage. They weren't like in the huddle or something. He was just, brah! Okay, for real, with no animation here. Okay. But he'd be there at the line and calling out signals and off to the side. Rah, rah, rah. Okay. Am I grossing everybody out sufficiently yet? Because a lot of it would get stuck to the
face mask.
I knew I was just trying to get a reaction out of the boss over there. I finally did it.
Just icicles of vomit hanging down from the face mask.
He's done. Look at this. She's had it with this terrible program. Paul Gracer says he feels like LT's draft partner Lamar Woodley had a similarly relaxed personality, but would flip that switch come to game time. I knew Lamar better than most, and Lamar was not necessarily that guy. Lamar lost so much of his mojo when he would have injuries that would keep him from being superhuman. Like, he wouldn't ramp it up. He would actually get discouraged and he would get held back by it up here. So it's a little bit of a different mindset. Why are we all of a sudden talking about the Steelers defense from 15 years ago? Where did that happen?
Because people miss the glory days, I guess.
Eric wants to know, what is the difference between the LeBeau scheme and what they're doing? Chris already mentioned the zone blitz and so forth, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, the zone, but mainly what's built around the zone blitz. It's outdated because offenses now operate so quickly. Quarterbacks get rid of the ball so quickly now that if you tried to run a zone blitz against Patrick Mahomes, he's going to hit those open spots almost every single time, and he's just going to gash you. Low odds like gash you, nickel and dime you to death, and he already kind of does that anyway. But yeah, it's a different game nowadays. It's just different.
Awesome to see that I grossed everybody out. Carol's not even going to have dinner now. DV points out that the LeBeau defense took him 2 years to learn because it was so complicated. And you got to understand, with Debo, you're talking about an extra level thinker of football.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're also talking about someone who, when you'd ask him, to explain the nuances of football, he would answer with his eyes about this big, beat the man in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
Hodge says, all right, DK, I just finished a burrito. I am rethinking those refried beans now. I can really relate to you rethinking those refried beans. Paul Grazer says, what's the best part of Latrobe for you guys? I would imagine the trip down Route 30 is the worst part. It depends on the time of day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I live 30 minutes from.
Yeah, I don't. I'm all the way downtown. Yeah. He's out there. Yeah.
So I'm at a good, pretty much a good halfway point between the city and Latrobe. So, Sharky's is always a good one to go to. I always enjoy Sharky's. Dino's is another good place to go. Those are my two favorite spots to go in Latrobe, but I'm also not staying out there because, like I said, I live 30 minutes away. So
it's a wonderful place. It's a challenge logistically for reporters and so forth. That's been true forever. That's not the Steelers' fault. That's the nature of having the event on a college campus. we like to be at our machines. We like to be doing stuff at our machines so we can communicate more quickly and so forth. And you can't really do that there. You got to do a lot of, I don't want to say running, but they're long walks from one place to another. And anytime you ask a reporter what they think about any place where you're covering an event, we will give you the worst, most non-relatable answers, because it's not gonna be about the magnificent vista or the ivy on the outfield wall at Wrigley Field, which is the worst place to do a sporting event as a reporter. Okay, it's not gonna be about any of that sappy stuff. It's gonna be, I can't do my bleeping job there.
Yeah. It's funny because I like, you judge stadiums and ballparks based off of working conditions. Like
yes, there's Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, it's not in like Chad or Sudan. It's Latrobe. Sorry, it's a college campus.
Yeah. No, honestly, probably one of the biggest challenges, and I'm saying this a little tongue in cheek, but one of the biggest challenges of covering at St. Vincent College is the uphill walk to get to lunch.
Yeah,
it is literally a climb to get up that hill.
Especially if you're hungry on the way to lunch.
Yeah. You're like, man, I was already hungry to begin with. Now I'm hungry, sweaty, shaky.
We're gonna take a couple more today. DV says worst stadium environment for covering. I already mentioned Wrigley Field. Chris knows our policy whenever we're setting up our baseball schedule breakdown or how we're doing it as a staff. The first thing we do is we go, I'm not going to Wrigley. And then after that, we just start distributing the rest.
Yeah. Football wise, in my opinion, and I've been to, I don't remember how many, but it's been almost half. Baltimore to me is the worst.
Even though they just built a new press box. Yeah, they just built a brand new press box.
Brand new press box. They had every opportunity to make it bigger, to make it more roomy. They made it somehow more cramped than the old one was, with a worse view, and the locker room is completely you cannot navigate it without stepping on somebody's equipment bag or helmets or cleats or jock straps or whatever else. It's just, it's not fun whatsoever.
No. I mean, I could do one for each of the various sports and so forth. Generally speaking, just have functioning Wi-Fi. We don't make a habit of complaining. We really don't. Okay. Make sure that the Wi-Fi is good. By the way, that includes at Acrisure Stadium, where it can be spotty at times. Hovain asks if I'm ever going to come to Brooklyn. I've been there when the Islanders spent a couple of years there. The Penguins were playing games there. I'd never been to Brooklyn in my life before, never been since, is the answer to the question. I believe the NBA team plays there now.
Yes.
They have an NBA team, Brooklyn?
Well, yeah, the New Jersey Nets moved.
The New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn. Okay, so but they're playing in the old Islanders place. Yeah. Okay, so that was it. I actually stayed in Brooklyn, so I walked around, got to see some of the city and so forth. Hovain says Yankee Stadium, because I sure hope it isn't because Hovain thinks that Yankee Stadium is in Brooklyn. It is nowhere near Brooklyn.
No, it's not. It's in the Bronx.
The Islanders shared with the Nets. Yeah, that's correct. Keith says, I've seen a post that they're upgrading Acrisure Stadium. Is this true?
They're upgrading the Wi-Fi. I know that for sure. But in terms of like major updates for fans, no, not really. Nothing.
Not yet. Anyway, it's in the offing here. Eric gets our last question for today. Says, do you think that Mason Rudolph's athleticism is underrated? We've seen him in short order move around and evade defenders, even scramble. Your thoughts? Mason's funny about this because he'll alternately joke about it and then he alternately won't. Okay? If that makes sense. He'll be like, I mean, if I got to get out there, I'll get out there, and I'm not going to hesitate, and I'm not just going to let you hand me 10, 15 yards and then not take it. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's not going to be certainly designed runs. It's not going to be the stuff that they had already begun drawing up for Justin Fields, who's top 2 or 3 in the world in that regard. But he as soon as you start pushing it too far, he'll take it back. And if you'll recall, one of his more impressive moments in that 4-game run in 2023 was that hard run he had up the middle for a first down. Remember down near the goal line that was almost like Josh Allen-like. See, that he would appreciate. Mason had a run that was Josh Allen-like.
No, I mean he's not going to have mobility that's going to create a bunch of plays out of structure. He doesn't have that type of mobility. But he does have enough mobility to do designed play action rollouts where he can keep his eyes downfield, even if he has a guy in his face or a couple guys in his face. If he's already rolling out, knowing where everybody else is going to be, he can see and then make the necessary throw. He's not going to outrun a lot of these really, really fast edge rushers now. But the one thing that Mason is very dedicated to, and he did it in 23, and it showed again with the Titans last year, is that he is vehemently dedicated to playing within the structure from the pocket. And that is something that every offensive coordinator will like, because at the bare minimum, it raises the floor of the offense. It helps. It gives you a better chance of like staying on schedule, as football people like to say, where they're staying ahead of the chains. They're making 1st and 10 into 2nd and 6. They're making 2nd and 6 into 3rd and 2, where they're constantly moving forward. They're not playing behind the sticks ever. And Mason's dedication to that definitely pays off.
Nooney says Justin Tucker to Pitt. Confirm. I got to tell you something, Nooney. Tucker's in a lot of trouble, and his career and his life are about to go backward, but I don't think he's going back to a college program.
There was just so much wrong with that.
And you know the only thing I was going to notice out of that,
right? I know exactly what you're going to say. As soon as I saw 10.
Oh, my God. There's a city and there's a school.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, listen, good show. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and fun. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow. Are we not, Chris?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we'll do one tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. No, see, you can't get away with this. Like Robert says, PIT. No, it's just Pittsburgh. And what PIT is the airport code. Okay, every airport's got a code worldwide. They've got a 3-letter code. It's just a universal system. Ours happens to be PIT. I feel like it should have been PGH, but I wasn't around when they made that decision, and they wouldn't have cared what I thought, even if I was. It's really, really a simple thing here. Nobody in Pittsburgh refers to the city of Pittsburgh as Pitt. Nobody. Pitt means one thing here. It means the university. That's all. Nothing else to it. Jerry Yeager has some kind words for us. Eric does as well. Heck with Tucker, indeed. Well, we're going to see how he gets Deshaun Watson out of the league in a hurry. And by the way, did the Ravens really embarrass themselves with that statement? Wow. Who? It's like they went to pirate school for handling that whole thing. You know? Again, we got Chris dying in the background here. This is becoming a trend here. Eric says, DK and Chris got me spoiled. In fact, here's a little something for the cause, he says, and he gifts 10 memberships. Appreciate that. Let's start going through some of these in our Taking Care of Business segment. First off, the boss points out that we have 2,227 memberships now. So in my rudimentary, mostly caffeine-free math, that means that we are 700 and something memberships away from our goal we're trying to hit by the first day of reporting into Latrobe. Mark Rutland is a new member. Cybot came in with some gifts. Cody Silva asks about Holcomb and Wilson. Will there be a competition? I don't think so. I think you just have an honest rotation there. Cody, sorry I missed that one earlier. Cody also had another 5. Look at this. Patrick Queen loves Patrick Queen, and Cody just keeps he knows the price of making sure that your question gets on. We're not above that, my man. Facts Only did it the other way around. He got his question answered, got his second voice in, and then dropped the $10. I see you there. Josh Cook with the $10 gift. Bert Fritz came along with 20 gifts. And to let you guys know how this works, if YouTube will just assign you a gift, and that's cool and all, but it only lasts for 1 month and it does not automatically renew or anything. So you're going to have to come in and get one yourself regardless. Our friend Vic came in with $20 right at the beginning of the show to make sure we were all in a good mood. Carrie is always in with the 1. Jeffrey with 5. Butthole with 1. And Butthole was not satisfied with the number of times that we said butthole, so then Butthole just comes in now again so that I have to say butthole again. That's mature. James Richard wants to know why Minkah Fitzpatrick can't be the green dot. He's the best defensive coach we have anyway. I know why. Because it's hard to wear the green dot when you're part of a defense that has you located on the International Space Station mirror. And that's the distance from which Minkah is now operating. Okay, Minkah has a telescope out there. He's got, okay, put Chris on. He's waving. He wants to be on. I knew I wasn't going to pull off the International Space Station mirror without him. Go ahead, Chris. You're on.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to find this. I had a number that I found earlier today, and that's actually part of what I'm writing. But I'll give the little hint here. Hold on. I had to pull it up.
He's looking for a picture of the International Space Station mirror.
Here, this is from NFL Next Gen Stats.
Okay.
Minkah Fitzpatrick aligned 12.6 yards away from the line of scrimmage on average this season, the 4th deepest of any player in the league.
Why? Why do you
know.
not want your football player playing football?
Let me know if you need help.
Why do you do that? I'm telling you, one thing that's going to come up, and it's not going to be OTAs or whatever, because Mike Tomlin gets really gristly about, asking him stuff that's really intensely football. But I think like the first day of training camp, when Tomlin just takes a ton of different subjects, you know which session I'm talking about, where it's a longer term, and he gives some of his better answers of the entire year, because he'll entertain any questions, right? For real, as opposed to just saying so. And I think that's going to be one that's going to have to come up.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's just like, what are you doing with this $18 million a year player?
Now, there is some other data that I pulled up. I'm not going to give it all away here. I'm in the middle of writing it right now. So check out DK Pittsburgh Sports later today, and it'll be up there for you to read. But I definitely interesting. I'm just going through normal things today, and I came across that, and I was like, I'm writing something off of that. That's now we have an actual number to quantify. Like you can always say, man, it seems like Minkah's constantly away from the line of scrimmage. Well, it's true. It's true. It's not something that you're guessing at. It's a quantifiable number.
Swan is a 2-year member of this thing, and that's an awful lot of support. We appreciate that, Swan. We appreciate all of you, and we will be back with another one of these programs tomorrow, as well as a new Ramon Foster show.